I'm Jessica, 29F, and I've been dating my boyfriend Ryan, 33M, for about 8 months. He's been divorced for 18 months and has a 7-year-old daughter named Lily, who he gets every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. His ex-wife Amanda, 31F, has primary custody. When we first started dating, Ryan was very upfront about the custody situation being difficult. He said Amanda was still bitter about the divorce and was constantly threatening to take him back to court to reduce his visitation. He painted her as vindictive and unreasonable, always looking for reasons to keep Lily away from him. I felt bad for him and tried to be as supportive as possible. I listened to him vent about Amanda's behavior and helped him keep records of their interactions for his lawyer. I thought I was being a good girlfriend by standing by him through this difficult situation. About 4 months ago, Ryan started talking about Amanda's threats more seriously. He said she was claiming that I was a bad influence on Lily and that she was going to petition the court to require supervised visitation only. I was hurt and confused. Lily and I get along really well. She's a sweet kid, and I enjoy our time together. I've always been responsible around her, never drank when she was there, and made sure to follow any rules Ryan had about parenting. Ryan said his lawyer told him to document everything to show he could provide a stable home environment. This made sense to me, so I didn't think anything of it when Ryan started being more careful about our activities with Lily, taking photos of us cooking together, helping her with homework, playing games. I also didn't think it was strange when he asked me to be mindful of what I posted on social media, since Amanda apparently monitored his accounts looking for ammunition. I made my profiles more private and avoided posting anything that could be taken the wrong way. Last month, Amanda did file a motion requesting supervised visitation, claiming that Ryan's girlfriend was creating an unstable environment for Lily. Ryan was devastated and said his lawyer was worried because Amanda seemed to have specific information about our relationship that made me look bad. He wouldn't tell me exactly what she was claiming, just that she had somehow gotten hold of information that portrayed me as irresponsible and potentially harmful to Lily. I couldn't imagine what that could be. I'd been nothing but loving and careful with his daughter. The hearing is scheduled for next week. Ryan has been extremely stressed and acting weird about his phone lately. Usually he's pretty casual about it, but he started taking it with him everywhere and being more secretive with his messages. Yesterday morning, Ryan was in the shower and left his phone on the nightstand. It kept buzzing with notifications, and I could see they were text messages from AR, which I figured was Amanda based on her initials. I was curious about what she might be saying right before the hearing. Ryan and I had always been open about our phones. We both knew each other's passcodes and had never hidden anything before. I picked up his phone and entered his passcode to see if it was some kind of emergency or urgent custody issue. What I saw made my blood run cold. The message thread was full of screenshots. Screenshots of MY text messages. Messages between me and my friends, me and my family, me and my coworkers. Private conversations I'd had over the past several months, all forwarded to Amanda. I scrolled up and found months of Ryan sending Amanda screenshots of my private text conversations, along with his commentary. Ryan. Screenshot of me telling my friend I had wine and Chinese takeout after stressful workday. She drinks alone regularly when stressed. I can document more instances if needed. Amanda. Perfect. This shows a pattern of using alcohol to cope. Very helpful. Ryan. Screenshot of me venting to my sister about Lily having a meltdown at the grocery store. She complains about Lily frequently. I have more examples of her getting frustrated with parenting situations. Amanda. Excellent. This shows she's not patient with children and gets overwhelmed easily. I found screenshot after screenshot of my private moments. Times when I confided in friends about relationship stress, complained to my mom about work, or vented about normal life frustrations. All of it taken out of context and presented as evidence that I was unstable or unfit to be around a child. But what made me feel physically sick was realizing that Ryan had been deliberately creating opportunities for me to say things he could use against me. I remember times when he'd brought up stressful topics right before I was texting with friends, or when he'd asked me how I was feeling about parenting challenges right before I called my mom. He'd been manipulating conversations to get me to express frustration or uncertainty that he could then screenshot and send to Amanda. The most recent messages revealed their strategy. Amanda, this should be enough to get supervised visitation. The drinking evidence is concerning, and the complaints about Lily show she's not suitable to be around her unsupervised. Ryan, I feel terrible about using her messages like this, but I can't risk losing any time with Lily. If the court thinks Jessica is a bad influence, they might reduce my time even more. Amanda, you're protecting our daughter. Better to have supervised visits where Jessica can't influence her than risk the court deciding you're not providing a safe environment. Ryan, I just hope this works. If they think my home isn't stable because of Jessica, I could lose even more custody. Suddenly it all made sense. Ryan wasn't helping Amanda out of spite. He was terrified that if the court believed I was a bad influence, they might decide his entire living situation was unsuitable and reduce his custody even further. In his mind, agreeing that I needed supervision was better than risking losing Lily altogether. But the method was still a complete betrayal of my trust and privacy. I took photos of their conversations with my own phone, then put Ryan's phone back exactly where I found it. I've been sitting in my car outside my office for 3 hours now, trying to process what I discovered. Ryan has been systematically violating my privacy for months, taking my most vulnerable and private thoughts and using them to build a legal case against me. Every text I sent complaining about a bad day at work, every moment I expressed normal human frustration, every time I wasn't completely perfect, it was all being documented and twisted to make me look unfit to be around his daughter. But the worst part is realizing how he manipulated me into providing this evidence. He would bring up stressful topics or ask leading questions, then wait for me to text or call someone to vent, knowing he could capture my response. I feel so violated and betrayed. These weren't just casual conversations he happened to see. He was actively screenshotting my private messages and sending them to his ex-wife to use against me in court. I also feel incredibly stupid. How did I not notice that he was always around when I was texting, or that he seemed to know more about my conversations with friends and family than I told him? I don't know what to do. The hearing is next week, and they're going to use my own private words against me to argue that I'm a bad influence on Lily. Do I confront Ryan? Do I tell his lawyer what's happening? Do I contact Amanda directly? I'm also terrified about what this means for the hearing. If the judge sees those screenshots without context, I'm going to look terrible. My private frustrations and normal human moments are going to be presented as evidence that I'm unstable and harmful to a child. Has anyone ever dealt with anything like this? I feel completely betrayed, and I don't know how to protect myself from having my own private thoughts used against me. Edit. Thank you for all the responses. I'm trying to read through them, but I keep getting angry all over again thinking about how long this has been going on. Edit 2. Several people are asking if this is legal. I honestly don't know. Is it legal for someone to screenshot your private messages and use them in court without telling you? Update, 1 week later. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Your advice gave me the courage to take action, and I wanted to update you on what happened. After I found those messages last Monday, I spent the rest of the week figuring out what to do. Several commenters suggested I contact a lawyer immediately, so on Tuesday I called a family law attorney who offers free consultations. The lawyer was shocked by what Ryan and Amanda had done. She said that while taking screenshots of messages on someone else's phone might not be technically illegal since we shared passcodes, using those screenshots in court proceedings without the person's knowledge could be considered deceptive and potentially fraudulent. She also said that Ryan's deliberate manipulation to get me to make statements he could use against me was ethically problematic and could backfire on him if exposed to the court. Her advice was to document everything I'd found and be prepared to present it at the hearing if Amanda's lawyer tried to use my private messages as evidence. On Wednesday, I decided to confront Ryan. I waited until we were having dinner at his place. I need to ask you about something, I said, pulling out my phone. Why have you been sending screenshots of my private text messages to Amanda? The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. He immediately started denying it, saying he didn't know what I was talking about. I showed him the photos I'd taken of his message thread with Amanda. He went completely pale. Jessica, I can explain, he started. Explain what? That you've been violating my privacy for months? That you've been manipulating me into saying things you could use against me? That you and your ex-wife have been building a legal case using my private conversations? He broke down and admitted everything. He said when Amanda filed a motion claiming I was a bad influence, his lawyer warned him that if the court agreed, they might not just require supervision. They could decide that his living situation was inherently unstable and reduce his overall custody. He panicked and started cooperating with Amanda to show that he was being responsible by acknowledging concerns about me. In his mind, accepting supervised visits was better than risking losing Lily entirely. He said Amanda convinced him that they needed evidence to show the court that he was taking her concerns seriously and being proactive about Lily's well-being. So, he started documenting things to demonstrate that he was aware of potential issues and handling them appropriately. He claimed he never meant for it to go this far, but once he started, Amanda kept asking for more evidence, and he felt trapped. He was terrified that if he stopped cooperating, she'd use that against him too. But what really got to me was when he said, I was just trying to make sure I don't lose my daughter. You don't understand what it's like to have someone threaten to take your kid away. I told him that I understood wanting to protect his relationship with Lily, but that using my private conversations against me wasn't protecting anyone. It was betraying my trust and violating my privacy. He kept apologizing and saying he'd been desperate and scared, but the damage was already done. How could I ever trust him again knowing he'd been documenting my private thoughts for months? I told him I needed time to think, and I left. The hearing was this past Friday. I debated whether to go, since I wasn't technically a party to the case, but my lawyer advised me to be there in case Amanda's lawyer tried to present evidence about me. Sure enough, Amanda's lawyer did try to introduce screenshots of my text messages as evidence that I was an unfit influence on Lily. But when the judge asked how they'd obtained these private communications, things got complicated. Ryan's lawyer had to admit that Ryan had taken the screenshots from my phone without my knowledge. When the judge asked why I hadn't been informed that my private communications were being used as evidence, there was an awkward silence. Amanda's lawyer tried to argue that the content of the messages was what mattered, not how they were obtained, but the judge was clearly troubled by the deceptive nature of how the evidence was gathered. The judge also pointed out that the messages, when read in full context rather than as isolated screenshots, showed normal human frustration and stress rather than evidence of unfitness or instability. But what really hurt Ryan's case was when the judge asked him directly why he had been secretly gathering evidence against his own girlfriend. His explanation about trying to show he was being responsible made it sound like he either couldn't judge character himself or was willing to throw me under the bus to save his own custody. In the end, the judge denied Amanda's request for supervised visitation. She said that the evidence presented was obtained through questionable means and didn't demonstrate any actual harm to the child. She also noted that Ryan's willingness to secretly document his girlfriend's private communications raised questions about his judgment and trustworthiness. The judge warned both parents that future attempts to use deceptively obtained evidence could result in sanctions and that they should focus on co-parenting rather than trying to manipulate the court system. Ryan tried to contact me after the hearing, acting like everything had worked out fine. On Saturday, he showed up at my apartment wanting to celebrate that the supervised visitation had been denied. He seemed to think that because the outcome was good, we could just move past what he'd done. He said he was sorry for violating my privacy, but that it had all worked out for the best. I told him that what he'd done was a fundamental violation of trust, and that I couldn't be with someone who would use my private thoughts against me. He said he understood I was upset, but that he'd been desperate to protect his relationship with his daughter and hoped I could forgive him. But I realized that even though the court hadn't been fooled by their strategy, Ryan had still chosen to violate my privacy and manipulate me for months. The fact that it backfired doesn't erase what he did. I told him our relationship was over and asked him not to contact me again. It's been hard ending things, especially because I do care about Lily and will miss spending time with her. But I can't be with someone who sees my private thoughts as potential weapons to be used against me when he's scared or desperate. Update, 6 weeks later. I wanted to give an update since several people have been asking how things turned out. It's been 6 weeks since I ended things with Ryan, and I'm feeling much clearer about the situation. The initial hurt and betrayal have faded, and I'm mostly just relieved to be out of that relationship. Ryan tried to contact me several times in the first few weeks. He seemed genuinely confused about why I was still upset, since the hearing had gone well and his custody hadn't been reduced. He left voicemails saying he'd been protecting our family and that I was abandoning Lily over a misunderstanding. That really drove home how little he understood about consent and privacy. In his mind, because his fears about losing custody hadn't come true, there was no real harm in what he'd done to me. I heard through a mutual friend that he's been telling people I overreacted to him sharing some texts and that I chose my pride over his daughter's well-being. He's apparently painting himself as a devoted father who was abandoned by a selfish girlfriend. But I've also heard that several of our mutual friends have been disturbed by what he did and have distanced themselves from him. A few people have reached out to apologize for not taking my concerns about his behavior more seriously earlier in the relationship. I've been seeing a therapist to work through the trust issues this situation created. She's helped me understand that what Ryan did was a form of manipulation and emotional abuse, using my vulnerability and private thoughts against me to serve his own interest. She's also helped me recognize some red flags I missed in the relationship. Ryan's intense interest in my daily communications with friends and family, his tendency to bring up stressful topics before I called or texted people, his questions about my private conversations, these were all signs that he was monitoring and manipulating my communications. I've started dating someone new. His name is David, and we met through a hiking group. He knows the general story about my last relationship ending because of privacy violations, and he's been very respectful of my boundaries around personal communications. What I appreciate most about David is that he's never asked to see my phone, never questioned who I'm texting, and never shown any interest in my private conversations with friends and family. He trusts me and respects my privacy completely. I've also become more involved in digital privacy advocacy. I've learned that what happened to me is unfortunately not uncommon. Many people have their private communications used against them by partners, ex-partners, or family members without their knowledge or consent. I've spoken at a couple of workshops about protecting yourself from digital surveillance in relationships and recognizing the warning signs of someone who might be monitoring your communications. As for Ryan and his custody situation, I heard that the judge's comments about his judgment and trustworthiness led to him being required to take a co-parenting class. The court apparently wanted to ensure he learned appropriate boundaries and communication skills. I do sometimes think about Lily and hope she's doing well. She was a sweet kid, and I genuinely enjoyed our time together. But I had to protect myself from her father's behavior, and unfortunately, that meant ending my relationship with her too. The experience has taught me a lot about the importance of digital privacy and the need to be cautious about who has access to your personal communications. I'm more careful about what I put in writing now, and I pay attention to red flags around people being too interested in my private conversations. Most importantly, I've learned to trust my instincts. There were several times during the relationship when Ryan's behavior around my communications felt intrusive or manipulative, but I talked myself out of those concerns because I didn't want to seem paranoid. Now I know that if something feels wrong, it probably is, and I should pay attention to that feeling instead of dismissing it. Final update, 4 months later. I think this will be my final update on this situation. It's been 4 months since I discovered what Ryan was doing, and I wanted to share how everything has resolved. David and I are doing really well. We've been together for about 4 months now, and I'm continually amazed by how healthy our relationship is compared to what I experienced with Ryan. He's never once asked to see my phone, questioned my communications with friends and family, or shown any interest in monitoring my private conversations. He trusts me completely and demonstrates that trust through his actions every day. We've talked about my experience with Ryan, and David was appalled by what happened. He's been very patient with my need to maintain strict boundaries around privacy and has never made me feel like I was being paranoid or overprotective. It's been healing to experience what a normal, healthy relationship actually feels like. The difference between someone who respects your privacy and someone who violates it is profound. I've continued my work in digital privacy advocacy and have spoken at several more workshops. It's been meaningful to turn my negative experience into something that might help other people recognize and avoid similar situations. One thing I've learned through this advocacy work is how common digital surveillance and privacy violations are in relationships. Many people have stories similar to mine, partners who screenshot private messages, monitor communications, or use personal information against them without consent. My career has been going well. The whole experience actually motivated me to focus more on my professional goals, and I got a promotion at work a few months ago. Having something that was entirely mine and that Ryan couldn't touch or manipulate was important for rebuilding my confidence. I heard through mutual friends that Ryan has had difficulty with dating since our breakup. Apparently, several women have ended relationships with him after learning about his tendency to violate privacy and manipulate communications. Word has gotten around our social circle about what he did. I don't take pleasure in his difficulties, but I'm glad that other women are being warned about his behavior patterns. As for Lily, I still think about her sometimes and hope she's adjusting well. I genuinely cared about her, and it was hard to lose that relationship along with the romantic one. But I've learned that sometimes protecting yourself means walking away from situations entirely, even when there are innocent people involved that you care about. I'm grateful for the lessons I learned, even though I wish I could have learned them in a less painful way. I'm in a healthier relationship now, I have better boundaries, and I'm helping other people recognize and avoid similar situations. Ryan thought he could use my vulnerability against me to protect himself, but his deception ultimately backfired. He lost our relationship, damaged his reputation, and the judge questioned his judgment and trustworthiness. Meanwhile, I've built a life that's healthier and happier than anything I had when I was with him. That feels like the best possible outcome. Thanks to everyone who followed the story and offered support and advice. Your comments helped me through a difficult time and gave me the courage to trust my instincts and protect myself. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go get ready for a weekend camping trip with David. We're going somewhere with limited cell service, which sounds absolutely perfect. No phones, no screenshots, no surveillance. Just two people who trust each other enjoying nature together. That's what healthy relationships look like. Edit. Thank you for all the supportive comments. A few people have asked about resources for digital privacy protection. I'd recommend looking into organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation and the National Network to End Domestic Violence, both of which have excellent resources about protecting your digital privacy in relationships. And yes, the camping trip was amazing. It's incredible how peaceful it feels to just exist without worrying about who might be monitoring your communications.